about. I'm talking about.
Of this meeting of the Mayor Planning Board is Tuesday, May 24th, 2022, and the time is 7:07 p.m. First item is meeting minutes.
We have 2 sets of minutes.
Can you look over both of them? And I'm going to take a minute to look over both of them.
Bill had some changes that I made. That Bob, on the last meeting, Bob had recused himself and was replaced by Annette on Jersey Mike. So we made that already.
So, Bill, it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that even though I was not, I was recused from the meeting, I can still approve the minutes.
Yeah, you don't even have, you don't, all you have to, people can approve minutes if they weren't even at the meeting.
Right. Just wanted to clarify that.
Good one.
What I don't see in the 10th minutes,
May 10th?
does it, you said that Bob, did notice that Bob recused himself?
No, it doesn't. And that's what I have to add that. Yeah, Bill and I were talking about it before.
And then it should say at the beginning that Annette is voting on it tonight.
That's
Because,
correct.
because sometimes, I'm thinking of previous minutes, sometimes we have the votes listed.
Mhm.
I know in the decisions, the votes are listed,
Yes.
but obviously we just have to make it quick. Who voted?
No, you're right. You're actually.
And we already looked over April 26th, right? These were,
Yeah, there were some changes that,
Paragraph missing.
yeah, it was, and I got called away and Julia made some notes.
Was the meeting on the 11th or the 10th?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a,
Because the footnote.
it does, yeah, let's look. I can't remember. I can look it up.
Day will be week.
May 10th.
All right, it was the 10th, so it's just the footer.
It was 10th?
Yeah.
All right, okay, change that. That's a good one. Then.
I'm okay with the minutes of 26th and the minutes of the 10th with the addition of the Bob recusal that vote.
because that's on Sunday. Let's start with 26. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 26th.
I will second.
Thanks. All in favor by hand? Bill, it's 4-0.
4-0.
In favor of approving the minutes from April 26th.
Thank you.
And then for the meeting minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 10th
As amended.
as amended,
I will make
as
the,
discussed today.
I will second.
All in favor by hand? That is 4-0 to approve the meeting minutes from May 10th as amended.
excellent. Okay,
Good job.
we are current. We're back to current. Everything ready to go. Okay. So,
Is there anybody on the watching?
well, Oh, it's one.
That's you.
I'm watching.
All right, that's good.
We're usually a hot ticket, not tonight.
It was a boring agenda.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, the discussion had gone on, as you know, on potential adjustments to the DoD specifically, you guys, there's been some correspondence about 945. There's, I mean, I think I have all the materials that you guys went back and forth through the email, so I don't know how much you want to go into the discussion and what maybe perhaps what some of the goals were, you know, or what we're trying to do. And then if you like, you know, a couple of updates on some other stuff, but I think the DoD.
I'd also like to discuss the criteria, because that was on our list of things to discuss,
Criteria.
the DoD special permit.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So
Okay,
I'd like to discuss that too, but yes,
sure.
I'd like to get feedback, since Bill Crenshaw and I had some input already. I'd like to get some feedback on this from Annette and Bob.
So would you like me to pull up what you guys?
Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's ready to go. Word docs. Close out. Not there. All right, so let's go out and come back in. There we go. Okay. So this is everything that that happened last week in your emails, and I popped it all up here with some stuff I thought that might be helpful. So do you want me to pull the email chain to start?
No,
Yeah, I think just the final, and then we can talk about how we got there.
The final?
Did the final 945? Do you have a final 945?
Well, our drafts that we,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I mean, the last draft, the
Yeah.
most recent draft.
Okay. This is the calculations, this is the rents, and here's version 2.
that's next.
All right. Here we go. So I can, let's see. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Is there a way?
Maybe scroll down and then we'll zoom in a little.
That's what I'm gonna do. Move you guys out of here, scroll down, and we'll zoom in.
And it really is that unit calculation that I think is the crux of this. Right, Bill?
Yeah, 'cause it tries to make that section relevant again.
Okay, so how's that?
That's okay for me.
Mind your way? Oh,
I can't see it.
you want that one? Sure. I could print it too, I mean, but if you prefer.
Maybe the table might be easier to talk through this.
Can you just print it out? so-
Sure. I'll print them all out. You want the tables, this, then the tables.
Maybe, yeah. So what Bill Crenshaw and I were going back and forth on was trying to see how we could, I think Bill, we're trying to do two things. We're trying to take a look at the 80% number, but also try to figure out what portion of that 80% number, we could actually drop to a 60% AMI, a way to increase more affordable housing stock at a lower price. And so what you see here, I think what you see here, and I haven't read this over yet, this is what Bill Nemser drafted. This is what you drafted? Anybody did read it over? I did.
So from my viewpoint, this section of 945, which is one piece of the DOD, one of the things it's trying to allow a greater density of housing. But as an incentive, it's like, well, if you want to do a greater density of housing, you have to do two things. You have to provide affordable housing, and you have to provide some money for open space. Now, the section about providing affordable housing kind of became, you know, it's kind of wiped out when we put inclusionary zoning everywhere. Because, you know, the section said, oh, you have to have at least 15%. But the inclusionary said, no, you have to have 25% of the bigger stuff. So what this does is try to make it the amount of affordable consistent with the inclusionary. So inclusionary requires 18 or more to be 25%. So, okay, so that's a change. And then in order to make it a trade, so to speak, between getting more units on the same property, you have to make some of those units at 60% AMI affordable instead of the standard 80% AMI. And the thought was for, you know, 1/4 of all those extra units you get have to be at 60% AMI. So it doesn't really affect anything below 18 units. That's basically where it's always been in the DOD regs. But anything 18 or more units, if they want the bonus, then 1/4 of the bonus units have to be provided at 60% AMI. That's the basic thought.
And it's also going to be reduced.
Well,
Is that?
the whole thing is, I mean, this is a subsection of the section that says if you want it reduced, you got to do 2 steps. This is the first step, affordability. The second step is open space. We're not touching the second step because that's it. So it only affects units of 18 or more units, properties of 18 or more units. Picks them up to 25%, same as inclusionary requires anyways. And then it says, okay, if you want the advantage of all these extra units, then 1/4 of your extra units have to be at 60%.
They also cut down almost half to gain more units. Or 18 or more units. Cutting down.
We're doing that for anything with the DOT. That's the whole point of that section.
So, and for the 17 or less, is that going to be the same?
Yeah, that's because that's the existing way it's.
18 plus?
Well, the way it's written now, 18 plus is at 15%. In that section. Right, so we're just trying to, but we required 25% from a separate section of the zoning bylaw that got passed later.
That's everything.
Jesus Christ, you can print this on 1 page?
Huh?
Don't reprint this. Work with it.
The, yeah,
No, the one that shows the number of units and number of portables. Printed-
oh, geez, yeah,
printed
yeah,
landscape.
yeah.
Bill's up in RJ. Where's Julia?
I know, apparently. I guess she does run the place, huh? Well, just so you, I mean, one of the things he handed out here was this little table of the rents. And those are the current 80% and 60% rents.
Like this, I mean, that's still for studio,
Yeah.
$1,300, 60%. That's. and for family.
In Maynard it is, yes. The problem is, these numbers are based on a group that includes places like Concord and Wayland, Watertown. Or Waltham. And frankly, going to 60% isn't actually costing the development a hell of a lot. Because, you know, they're pretty close to the market rate in Maynard. But, you know, 20 years down the road, maybe it will matter.
That's for studio.
For studios, yeah.
So inevitably, what this does.
And it's hard to-
This is right. Um,
it's a real- While he's out there, one other thing on the markups that is suggested is, you look at the second and third pages, all this red stuff that's crossed off. I mean, that's what we have for what has to go in the development agreement. And some of it, you know, isn't really needed. It's a little redundant to say, ooh, what kind of house, how many units. That's all, you know. So the option to try to take those 16 or whatever line items and squish them down to 3. Make it more general.
But also targeted.
Yeah.
There's no reason to discuss cable utility improvements or conversion to underground utilities. Those traffic mitigation.
You can, I mean, that does kind of mitigation sometimes, but you don't have to. It doesn't always come up. Now, the one thing I am trying to sneak in here is number 3, with the blue. And commitments regarding operation and types of uses in commercial space, including provisions for interim use. I want the town to be able to do something with the space, even just the facade of the space, if they don't rent it. I think we actually wrote that into the 115. I kind of want it to be standard. Some of these big SKUs, you know, they just put it in and they're like, yeah, I never consented, sorry.
Use your starting. Oh,
They're focused on.
Oh, it's not residential, that's what I make the money.
here's some of the.
That stuff counts as storage. cost. On this chart that was handed out, as an example, you look at the first column on the left, number of units at 1,500 square feet. Say, look at number 10. It's like, say they could do 10 by right at 1,500. So that means the lot's about 15,000. But they want to do it at 800 units. They want to get special permission. Then they can do 18. So that means they get 8 extra units. And what we're saying is, well, okay, a couple things kick in. 25% of everything has to be affordable. It's a lot. But also, 25% of that 8 has to be at 60%. So of the 5, 2 of them at 60%. Remaining 3 at 80%. Yeah, that's a split. So
So 18 units total. Per 800 square feet. Let's just stick with the. So 18 units total. 5 required to be affordable because it's 25%.
stay. Just a little to that.
And then 3 market.
Yeah.
What not-
It's not 5 of the extra, it's 5 of the whole project.
5.
It's the current rule.
Yep, 5 the whole project.
Inclusionary zoning says.
Yep, so that's 5 required to be affordable. And of those 5, 2 of them, we have 60%.
Remaining will be the-
And the reason is because we're rounding up on the 25%.
But how many market rate then units?
you got 18 minus 5, 13.
That's what I'm saying. So there's 3 over, so the developer would be entitled to 12, as you said, if he didn't do this at all, right, the standard. He retired-
Maybe it's out of 10.
But now he's entitled to 13 at market rate, but he has 5. He also has to provide 5
Well,
for.
That's not quite true, because at 10, he has to have 25%.
We have to do.
So he's only getting 8 market rate by right. You'd have to do 8 to 2, because that's what the inclusionary says.
So, but now so what is he, but what is he building to the net? So he is, in the end, how many market rate units do they have in that scenario?
13
13, right?
instead of 8.
So it's quite a bonus. It's good.
That's his bonus, yeah, 5 market rate units. And
Yeah, but I'm saying, I think that's good. That's.
And at the current rents in Maynard, I don't think it's a problem. But I mentioned last time, when the housing trust talked to the guys doing 2 powder mills, they're like, I can charge $2,500 for a 2-bedroom. Oh my God, I wasn't even thinking that high.
It's true.
Talk to any developer right now. A lot of the rental prices are near or at the mark anyways.
I mean, this is the guy at 129 Barber, it's not super luxury,
Right.
so for anything you're gonna get downtown.
What I didn't understand, you made one comment, Bill, or Chris, I'm not sure. You were saying that it doesn't kick in until, you're talking about until 10, right? Where the difference?
We're just using 10 as the.
No, no, on the email, so going back and forth, there was.
Oh,
you made a
so
distinction.
what I was saying was, if you just by the math, if you have 10 units total, if 25% of them are affordable, and I think the way our zoning is written, that would only make 2 units affordable
Correct.
under that scenario. 25% of
I
2.
might make 3, right? Good point.
Well, yeah, but either way, it doesn't, there wasn't really much change until I think we hit like 18 or so, when we really start to
That's
see,
what-
when
yeah.
we really start to see the 60% affordable units starting to go up. Before that, I think it was like 1 or 2.
Right, because,
Just
because
because
the
of the math.
inclusionary is, it starts off at like, you do like 6, it's 10% have to be affordable.
Yeah.
10,
Right.
15%.
Right.
So, yeah, you're right, it doesn't really count.
So I think at 18 is when, and that's why we try to mimic it here with the language, was that at 18 that's when you really start to see that shift. And that's what our changes would be impacting, would be any development downtown with over 18 units. If there's developments downtown at the DOD under 18 units, this really wouldn't have much of a change at all. There might be 1 60% unit, but that's really it.
No, it wouldn't apply to anything under 18.
Under 18, yeah, right, up to,
The bonus, the
unless we change the rounding, we wanted to somehow, but
Yeah, we could, yeah. I mean, we could require a minimum of one regardless of the size,
Right.
but,
Right, but based on the way the map is, it's just, yeah, there's.
but this was really oriented to
That's why
To-
all that's blank.
make more current the stuff that was made less current by the IZ change.
So at 18, that's when you start based on all the different regs in town, that's when we start to see this. These are all blank because they're zeros. Zeros. So that's why at 18, this has effect downtown, but below 18, it doesn't, unless, in its current form.
The new concept really will be the 60%, making that kind of so people understand it, and that what is it, $1,800 a month for a 60% facility? You're paying 18 a month, right?
19 for 2 bedroom,
Yeah, 19%.
16 for 1.
So here's the current one here for inclusionary. Right there.
Stay on that table.
Can you zoom in some more?
Yeah, 6 to 12 was 10%, and 13 to 17 was 12%.
How's that?
It's better.
And the current DOD language says everything is 15%.
Oh, shit. What happened there?
Broke it again.
I did. I'm terrible today.
You're
44.
patient.
Uh-huh.
You're patient.
44. Kennels, marijuana.
Should've brought my print.
So we're at the, there we go. So we had, let's see. Were you guys thinking a difference between rental and sale units?
I was not, just because we're not getting big condos. We're not getting a 20-unit condo downtown. It's not happening.
No, the last condo we had was 31, right? Yeah,
Yeah, right, that was like 5.
5 units.
So yeah, we are, if somebody wanted to build a bigger condo, a 21 or over condo, we're actually saying, oh, instead of 20%, it has to be 25%.
I don't have a sense of, I don't have justification really, or understanding of justification to have a difference between the purchase. What's the thinking behind,
Oh, in the IZ?
yeah, having the difference,
I have no idea.
thinking of it differently, I just.
In
I
general,
forget when it happened.
the state had found there was resistance to rental multifamily properties coming into areas, and there was resistance. And people were, they were apprehensive, let's say, and they felt it was a changer.
So
The-
it incentivizes condo ownership?
No, it doesn't. That's what they're saying. That this would incentivize,
Rentals.
rentals. And
Well, one of the other games is actually the town's viewpoint of if rental has 25%, then the entire rental count, even if it's not affordable, counts on the state affordable list.
Right.
10% threshold.
So-
So it's not really affordable, it's a fake affordable count.
right. And so this was to make, and so that was to make communities more agreeable to having a rental unit come in. Now, the irony is that with the younger demographic that we lost in the previous housing production plan, and we've gained them back in the new numbers. It tends to be a rental, this generation and these demographics that they desire more rental. It's certainly not bringing in undesirables, whatever that would be. you know, or whatever people consider that, it's a terror, it's. But for, that's why.
So we would combine this to be one.
We're not touching this. This is IZ.
Oh, sorry, yeah, okay, right. Yeah, that's what we were working on.
But we would stay with the more restrictive applies, I assume.
Because right now, that's IZ. Right now, the DOD says 15%, anything, 15%. So that's why we kept the line at the, you know, changed it at 17 to 18. 6 to 12 would be 15 in the DOD, 13 to 17 would be 15 in the DOD, and anything over that would be 25, regardless of ownership.
So again, just to summarize, the changes we've prepared here and proposed would add a handful of 60% AMI units to developments that have greater than 18.
Yeah,
18
exactly.
more developments, 18 more units total.
Correct.
So, and that would, for 18 units total, that would be 2 units at 60%. And for, let's just say 40, just for have a round number here, 40 unit development would have a 60% number of 5 units. 5 units would be 60%.
Correct.
I think,
So that's the change.
I mean, it's probably easier if we look at like 42 summer. 42 summer, how many units is that?
24, then 24,
Something like that.
So
26.
it's 26,
Yeah,
so
26,
it had 7 affordable units required.
right?
And this change would say that, oh, 3 of those would be 60%. That would be the difference.
But it's also good. It also, I like that we don't, you're still getting bonus units that are market rate too. So there's an incentive to not do the 15, you know.
You're still getting the same number of
Yeah.
bonus market.
No, it's good. It's good.
Math, right? For example, look at not 37 units. So,
Total.
yeah, 37 total units. Look on that line. And if you go to the total number of affordable units, it's 10. The total number of 60% units is 4.
Yeah.
Isn't that 40%?
No, the 60% is calculated on the number of bonus.
Oh, right,
We could,
right.
that's what we were originally playing, where we were trying to do it on the number of total units.
Right,
But it got a little weird for some reason.
Got that change, yeah.
So it'd have to be more like 30% of total or 25% of total or something. I don't know.
So what I'm seeing here is that the number of 60% units and the number of 80% units are, for a lot of these examples, are really close to being the same. So,
Sure.
right, so it's 2 at 60, 3 at 80, 4 at 60, 5 at 80. They're pretty close, so it's not quite half, but it's getting closer to, looks to be closer to around like 40%, give or take.
Of
Of the number, so
the
of
affordable,
the affordable, yeah.
yeah, okay.
Is that what we want? Do we want that many number of 60% units?
I want them all 60%.
Okay, okay.
Really, everything can be 60. You get an extra bonus units and everything.
The key is the bonus units. you
But
know,
that
the
might,
appeal is
that might be a little financially difficult.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Like, there's an, obviously, if we were to say they're all need to be 60%, that's gonna disincentivize development.
Oh, that's,
Right, of this category of size. schools.
well,
Right,
they could always do it as a right for the standard amount. They don't have to take the bonus.
that's true.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's my point, was that the bonus now does make it more enticing. You know, because like, and that gets lost. Well, it did when we did 42. You know, it's like, wait a minute, no, these are bonus units. These are, you could go in there and go to the site plan for whatever the number was, 15 units or whatever. But I was concerned that we did with that, if we went to the 60, that we might lose enough in the amount if we did. I think it's pretty good.
Not at today's rents. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that the big projects we've seen still happen.
That's kind of the crux of what I would ask.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think this, we should. What about, well, I'll wait till we get to the end of this.
Does this have, I have questions about longevity of this, you know, I'm thinking like, what is this change? How would it be applicable 10, 20 years from now? Is that even too hard to try to put, you know, check the thought to?
It's hard to say.
Or should we just stick with incentive, like, should we just stick it looking at this from an incentivized standpoint?
So if we became wall family, so the market rent was significantly different than the affordable rent. I think that's the point. But I don't think in 20 years we can do this. Pass this.
So if market rents,
But they get used to it.
let's say market rents go down. This is not really gonna.
Right.
Oh, I don't want to pay it.
If market rents go up, then it just makes some units more affordable in town.
And they make more money off their market. So they're getting market rate bonuses. Still get the same number of market rate bonuses.
They,
Sorry.
I understand that part. Focusing on the second part. So the second part provides information. Something is going to be in space information. And I wonder whether we could add an alternative. And that is for we had the discussion last week about the advantage of the fund that we can use to support, to provide the match for state grants to achieve the.
I wouldn't cannibalize that. We have to find another way. I wouldn't think we're funding source.
The only Bob said take it away, I think.
Gonna add to it.
Doesn't
I
bother.
think, you know, could it be, you know, I guess that's what the question is. You know, we could say we have to give a donation to the donation fund, and also we have to give a donation to the ADA. We could say
to the what fund, the second fund?
in the ADA fund.
Oh, ADA. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is tying into the criteria. The criteria requires substantial improvements. Yeah. In my mind, ADA improvements help meet that. And I don't know that it has anything to do with, hey, we're giving you a bonus of units, because this is a subsection. Not all projects take advantage of this section.
What does the Maynard Community Preservation Fund, how is that tied to bonus units? I get how the Yanko has affordable units are tied. to bonus.
More people, more open space.
I'm saying I can probably make the same argument.
Recreational and open space opportunities.
That the way that's connected could be easily connected to accessibility to it. So I think there's a precedent in history here of the preservation fund for sure. but I don't know if there's necessarily a connection back. It seems, I love it. I love that we have this in our bylaws. But it doesn't, it's not connected to, there's bonus units tied to 80% or 60% affordability. Those are tied together. It's living space type.
Now, this is population tied to open space and recreation.
Yes, that's what it
That's
is.
the tie.
Yeah, that's the tie.
It always was the tie.
And I like that tie.
Yeah.
I like that tie, but I do like the idea of an 88 tie. I don't know if it's appropriate.
Well, but
Well, I'm trying to think of it this way, like, so what is this? So in the past, we've had what? A couple projects donate actual land, right?
Yeah, no respect for cash.
So we've only gotten donations.
Well, the cash value, we have a safe harbor cash amount. If we say, oh, that donation is going to safe harbor.
I remember the McDonald's, when McDonald's applications, donate property in Burbank, right?
Yeah.
Right.
we got some cash.
Yeah, they did property did the work, right? They just-
So that was on 42, right? They donated the property.
Yeah.
Did we get cash from?
No.
One other one?
We didn't get anything out of 115, otherwise they gave us an easement along the river. It's not worth.
Didn't we get cash somewhere?
Go ahead. How many buckets that matter? Because
Okay.
nobody else used this one. I don't think so. Maybe not. 31 Main? No, I mean, they're 5, they don't even apply.
Probably got cash in the record, right?
We're just having a.
Yeah. I like this. What's missing?
I mean, maybe, you know, I don't know that it belongs in this subsection.
The 88?
Yeah.
But
Or
why
maybe it
would-
belongs
why-
in the whole.
But this is for, in addition to the site, we're saying that it would be 88 funded. So we know, I mean, you have to do the 88. Right,
Well, when you say that, I think you mean site has to be 88 compliant.
it has to be.
Is that what you-
That's not, yeah, that's,
But we're talking about
you're talking about an additional fund to make improvements elsewhere.
in the DOT.
So because we have all these crosswalks that don't have appropriate programs.
Well, why wouldn't we say it's like a DOD fund? Put it in the DOD and say, and we'll just establish those priorities and all this. One deal like it's the ADA stuff. So it's up. The goal would be 100% ADA
I
compliant.
totally don't like the idea of an DOT fund because DPW was just going to use it as a reason not to spend money. They could spend. Money's here, so I don't ever have to spend any money downtown. That should not go away. The town should be doing ADA stuff. It should happen regardless of who builds stuff. But
And what I'm trying to do is to create a fund that we can use as the match to leverage state funds. So if we come up with a 25% match, we, get a lot more money, do a lot more work. Rather than saying to a developer, just go and do the program or something.
I mean, that's some serious bucks. I mean, ADA work is some serious bucks. I mean, most projects in town would not do it. I mean, it's DOD, apply to the, the pot shops. I mean, okay, what number do you want them to give to an ADA fund and why? I mean, all they are is changing the inside of a building. They're not doing anything else.
It also benefits the community.
Sure, I know,
So it
but
should- so
someone, a general impact fee, but you're talking a general impact fee for anything done in the DOT. Not because they want bonus units, just because they built something in the DOT.
But I don't see any problems with the ADA being add-on to the community preservation fund. It's for the communities to preserve.
Well, the community preservation fund is, there's a formula that we have in our rules and regulations that ties it to open space first, like kind of that was the general idea. But the ADA fund, if we did an ADA fund,
But within open space, you'd also have something, you'd have to have also an ADA.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
when they built the park, it had to be ADA accessible, you know,
Right.
they had it, it
So
was,
wouldn't it
and
be-
that's fine.
right, but like yesterday, I'm sorry,
But wouldn't it be tied into the main community preservation?
I don't think so.
That's different. Community Preservation Act is a different state law that affects the different development, historic open space and housing. And
But
in
for
specific
example-
ways it can be used,
Like the-
different projects that it can be used for.
We were talking yesterday about ramps and having new ADA ramps. And for like a normal, without a curb limit or anything. Yes, the engineer, 6,000 would be the low. And for, yeah, for a ramp.
The
And
repair, both sides.
10 for the, yeah, and 10, yeah. And 10 would be the high. So 6, that give you a number about there.
And that's if you didn't have to grade the.
Right,
road.
because we had to do the ones that, on Nason Street were a lot more expensive, but we bumped out curbs.
That's more like a replacement.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are like replacements.
But like the ones like that aren't functional now that we just redo, which I thought was pretty cheap, honestly, compared to.
For replace, like again, those are replacement numbers for sure. If you need, as Bill said, if you need to recreate and replace 6 panels of sidewalk, it's a large project.
It's like,
It's a large project. Larger.
If we're not tying it into a incentive, relief on zoning, but we're just talking impact. So if you want to talk impact fee, it's like, okay, fine, 0.25% of the project has to be contributed to the downtown fund, whatever. So you just, let's call it what it is.
I mean, in my mind, if there's ways that we can help get initiatives going for downtown because of zoning bylaws and different developers contributing to it, that's my goal.
yeah,
I don't know what the best applicability of that, I don't know. But I think we all agree that we want help with downtown, so I think that we can all agree on for sure.
so I just thought of something.
Yeah.
If that was the case, what could be contributed to would be the cultural district fund. Because it's all in the cultural district's all in the BOD. And I think, I'm not positive, so probably Bill would know more about this than I do, but I believe they could set up as a nonprofit as well, the cultural district. And I think that would allow them to get a greater variety of donations as well. And we could say, X amount, like you said, a proportion of the project or something could go towards that. And maybe we did it rather than saying it's the DOD.
That's not a bad idea, and what Bill Crenshaw said earlier about DPW and their incentives, I think there has to be checks and sort of guardrails on anything that would have went in that, if that goes in that direction, clearly there needs to be controls.
You can't, when you set the account, because the account could be set up.
No, well, my point is that we just don't want, I think Justin's great and he'll make
Yeah,
great decisions, but the point is that you want decisions to be aligned with what we're deciding here. So slush fund is not clearly acceptable, for sure. And if it does disincentivize, an agency in town to not do the things that they should be doing anyways, I think that's something we really need to consider. We don't want to disincentivize any department to do things they should already be doing. So we gotta be careful.
But if we had like but you see what I'm saying? In other words, if we created like, just say, I'll give you a perfect example, tree fund, we created a tree fund. So remember when we got trees from or what, the marijuana people had, okay, that money was put in a tree fund. They couldn't have used that for a curb or you know, that. So it can be set up like that. So, I mean, you could do like, I was like, for example, pedestrian improvement fund, whatever it is. But if you specify it once there, then it's different. It's a slush fund you don't want to.
But it basically is a slush fund for DPW. If it was my tree fund, I'd be like, you know what, this fund will pay one extra tree for every two you put in,
See, that's
instead of every damn one that you should have put in 10 years ago.
right, because what Bill's saying is that if that fund exists, then DPW doesn't need to invest in the trees that should have been the purview from the beginning. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm not sure that it addresses the reality. So we had no street trees downtown, for example. We lost all our street trees all died. Now, with Greg, if you remember, Greg Gazula told us, which I didn't know, I mean, but street trees have a life of about 14 years. I didn't know that. And because they have in the little wells there. So after our street trees,
They have a life of 14 years because we don't design the subsurface soils for them to exist longer.
Okay.
That's a, we can talk more about that.
yeah, but the point was that they all died.
Yes, that's right.
And we didn't have money to put, we didn't have money to put the new ones in. So that was the flip side. So whether DPW had it in their budget or not, I mean, if they didn't have the money in their budget, they couldn't do it. So this way we were sure when we got from Olaf and from the other guy, that those funds were going to be used to put the street trees in. But, and I agree that if you were using, if we were doing that and there had been money set aside for the street trees, then you wouldn't want to, just.
I'm saying if we create a fund that will never be run. So it's like,
Say
if the
again?
trees die every 14 years, then, 1/14 of the cost of the trees should be budgeted every year for replacement. That's what you should be doing.
She's doing that with every piece of infrastructure.
Absolutely. But I don't think that the last guy to build something downtown has to pay because we didn't budget 14 years ago.
I don't disagree. I understand.
But there is something to Bob's idea of using funds and leverage those funds for greater purposes somehow.
Absolutely.
There's something there,
What's stopping us from doing that?
having the money to leverage it.
We can find the money. That's not too hard.
Well, the best
Maybe
way
it's
is,
25 grand to leverage $250,000.
if we, here, I'll give you an example, perfect example, because I was at Art Space.
So you're telling me we're doing the select board's job right now, is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't say it. I forgot what I was just said. Oh, well, all of a sudden.
We can bring it back to this if you want, but go look.
It just seems like there's a big need in the downtown area to create accessibility for people. And if we put the money into a fund like the Community Preservation Act, it doesn't necessarily even get spent downtown. It's spent elsewhere in the town. So, the idea of trying to improve the downtown district includes, trying to get it in compliance with the ADA. So why would we put the money into Community Preservation Act and would it be spent elsewhere before we are in compliance with the ADA?
Because the bonus units create additional population, and the additional population needs recreation and open space opportunities. It's a direct tie-in to the number of head count. It's not tied into location because you don't necessarily recreate downtown. You just recreate somewhere in town. It's fine. You live in town, you need recreational opportunities, and that's what it's doing. This is a bonus thing, but I think this discussion is really tied to the criteria. If the criteria is to improve the pedestrian environment downtown, then sure as hell paying for ADA stuff would check that box off for me.
There's another advantage also for like, if you did, let's just say the ADA, if you did an account for ADA improvements, we're talking about leveraging. Like today I was working with our, doing some stuff with Art Space and some potential grants. You get way more leverage and potential for getting cash grants if you have a match. So for example, I imagine like with ADA stuff, like you could say, okay, we're gonna put in X amount for, we'll match this, and then the state would probably be more inclined to give you, and we could use that, you know, it's in that fund, you could say, this is our match. And so, you know, you turn 5 to 10, that's all. If it's,
The community, but this 945 is DOD.
It's part of you. One,
Right, it's
one
one element.
section of you.
Yeah, but it's under DOD. 994 is DOD, right? So 94 is DOD, 945 is DOD. But but the major community preservation fund doesn't need to be leveraged for use.
And it doesn't need to be used for open space or recreation.
Yes,
Right.
it does.
And it's broader than that.
I know, no, but it has to be used for the acquisition and preservation of open space or recreational land.
No, it says
That's what's
law.
required.
You make a donation to the Native Community Preservation Fund, and they can use it for any statutory purpose that's allowed. Or you make it to another town fund that's going to be used for open space and recreation.
All right, if that's how you're reading that, then I would agree that you would want to strike Maynard Community Preservation Fund and just say a town fund or account dedicated to the acquisition and preservation of open space and rec. If that's your concern, that it will be used for historic preservation. I can see that.
Well, that's how I've read it.
Oh, that's not, that was not the original intent. It's just. Yeah,
Where is
That
it?
was not the original intent. If that's your concern, that it would be spent on
There it
something
is.
that's not open space and recreation, I can see straightening out. that
I'm
language.
not familiar with the Maynard Community Preservation Fund, but that, it sounds like that includes it's much broader than just, okay.
Maybe that's-
I read it that way. I read it.
One of the things that you said is to rebuild the fence around the cemetery. You know, so we use for a lot of other kinds of projects.
Historic.
but I don't think that would be consistent with this, though.
Well, that's not how I read it, but I mean, if somebody thinks that's a problem, I mean, because, you know, I don't know where those, you know, it does have a comma after preservation fund. And, you know, maybe the comma location or the use of the ors really means it's technically legal. I mean, but frankly, it's the planning board that would say where that money goes, right? I mean, we'd say
So
that, you know,
you're saying that the intent here was so that the money went to open space and recreation?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, no, I
acquire and preserve open space and recreation land, not buy a swing set. Get land.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, so if that's the goal. If, you know, we can always clean up language to make that intent very clear.
I mean, I did put in a additional text to make it clear that, you know, we'd be willing to trade.
Right.
Because I had, until I read it, I hadn't realized that. Probably.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to say it. And since this is DOD, shouldn't that money be then dedicated to DOD, something inside of DOD?
Open space and rec in the DOD, I don't
Well,
understand.
Because it's under 94, it's under the DOD. This is a.
No,
It's a DOD.
I think this is, the purpose of this is to mitigate against the increased density we're allowing. So it's saying that, you know, we're bringing in double the amount of people, we're going to make sure that there's recreation land. It's
Okay.
not,
Okay, so it's mitigating additional people.
that's the way I read it.
And so the intent here is to help increase open space and recreation because of the additional density.
Right, in
Right.
proportion to the increased density.
Right. But if there was a second, if
Because
there
that's only
was,
calculated based on the number of components.
Okay, and so, and that's why, so we expand that out to be all of Maynard. This acquisition of funds can be used anywhere inside of Maynard because it allows for open space and recreation anywhere
Right.
inside Maynard. to-
That would
to
be- that would
mitigate
be-
the density.
I think you would be totally, if you grabbed a chunk of land of open space that was, not in walking distance of so that would be the intent of that. If you wanted to, but-
I get that, it's to mitigate density. That-
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah. But I'm saying that I think there's, for downtown improvements, I think that's a separate category. Or whatever.
But you could make that same case that since we have greater density, we need to mitigate because of the greater density for all types of things,
A lot of,
trash pickup or whatever it is. Maybe, you could say mitigate for all types of reasons.
That's kind of funny because we often use the increased density to justify it in terms of the financial vitality of downtown.
Right.
People.
Right.
But kind of back and forth.
No, it does, but it can be doing. I mean, it's a small number, but sidewalks do get worn faster if you have greater density. It's probably incalculable how small it is.
yeah, but the key is, if it's done in good faith, and you're not just trying to say, I don't want to have density. You mitigate it in a way that takes into account. That's the way it's replenished.
I'm starting to appreciate the connections here. I still like the idea of trying to do this is the depth.
I agree. I totally agree.
Where are you at now with this?
Totally understand those kind of things. So. Yeah, I'm open to considering other options and ideas. I look at the town's obligations and that to the extent that, it's a project that's going on. It's like, let's do some mitigation. So people can go. Just better way to do that.
What's your number? How much per year?
It's a-
How much?
So if we put a financial number to a bonus unit, how much money should be dedicated per bonus unit to contribute to we'll just call it a downtown food structure.
Well, let's say this, if it was $2,500. That's. That $2,500 becomes $10 billion, it is the purpose. One property. So is $2,500 too much to ask somebody?
I don't know the financials nearly that well to understand what number that's impactful to it. I don't know what the development scope we're downtown. How much does it cost to build a unit?
But just in general, I mean, if it's that, you're like, yeah. All we have to do is, only that would just be. It's like, oh yeah, you're over here, well, you're fixing that, this is crosswalk, regardless.
don't need the funds to get funding. That we have, maybe Maynard does have to get the back, the matching funds, because it's a loan, right? It's a loan. So, but
Yeah.
To improve the sidewalks. They want 20-foot sidewalks. Transplanted in the cedars.
That's the money.
that is like, that was like,
Right,
um,
so they can, instead of us going into it, let the developer have that from ADA.
yeah, and I agree. So the process now is that
They would,
a developer that, like, take any of our projects, if they're nearby and there's a curb cut that needs to be
Yeah.
made in the ramp,
have to.
they do it. I think the Gruber Brothers building has a couple
Yeah.
sidewalk improvements, of course, and stuff.
And they fixed the crosswalk and
But
two
I'm,
of the,
I'm less concerned about those. I mean, there's two things I'm concerned about is the pace of development overall. Because there's some crosswalks that just won't ever get anything. Also, there's also stuff that will never be tied to. So like, even small things like trash cans.
some, actually, if we did our complete streets money from the state, just on the EDA, we could have fixed everything downtown. On EDA stuff, EDA crosswalks, but we did choose to prioritize that. So this is not the only means of achieving those.
Well, we can apply, as soon as our ADA grant or our transition plan, we have it, I'm not sure the exact stats, it's pretty close to being done. When that's done, I mean, there's straight out grants for ADA improvements for state. I mean, if you have the plan, and you could just, I mean, they're relatively simple compared to some of the grants. But for things like ramps and lifts and things, but I have to check with Julia on where we are with that, but she's working with Justin on that, but they have that transition plan. And, that would be key, because that's another thing, there are funds for that exclusively from the state. And if that gets done, that would be something that would be, I would think would be top priority.
But I'm so confused. Is this discussion about contributions for any project in the DOD or only projects that get extra residential units?
That's a very valid point. I think it would be a contribution from all projects. So it shouldn't be tied to proposed units. Would be that's been my thinking about it, is that it's every applicant has an opportunity to contribute to the need. Big picture, applicant contributes to the need.
Yeah, but if they have the right under the zoning to do their development, then we're not giving them anything, that we have the right to ask for litigation back.
And I think Bill would agree that if we put in a fee someplace else that's tied to the special permit, maybe that's the better way to do it.
Well, but yeah, but let's back up one sec, because it's maybe a point we kind of forgot the forest for the trees. Currently, the DOD is optional in the first place, which is, I would like to dump that, but currently it is. So when you come in and you're applying to do a project under the DOD, you have dimensional relief right there. So that, but we're saying, like right now, our special permit criteria for the DOD has, extra obligations. And that's why, remember last, with the use, we never addressed that with use. Now we did at the last meeting. But it would be awful if somebody came in and built under the dimensional requirements for the central business district now. But they could theoretically. They're already getting the bonus just from building under DOD regulations. So I would say that but I don't, that's the one thing I was gonna bring up to you guys tonight. If we're gonna do some stuff with DOD, why don't we make it?
So let's table this fund conversation and we'll talk about it more. Let's focus on, let's finish up.
Good conversation.
Good conversation. Let's finish up 945. Let's see where we can get, finish up that. Let's talk about the DOD overall. Suggested bill, and then we can maybe have a moment to talk about special permit criteria, because that was also next on our list of discussions. But let's table the discussion about a separate downtown fund and figure out the best way to do that. Because I still want to. We got to make. It's just there's so many pieces involved. We just got to figure out how to make it fit.
Well, the 60% thing was the key. That was a big.
So Bob, can you help Bill rewrite that section so that it's more applicable, number 2? Can I ask you to do that?
Yeah, sure.
So that it's geared specifically, as you stated, to space. Bill Crenshaw, do you think it'd be helpful to go through the list of the red line strikeout? With 16 items to make sure that I mean, generally I like the concept here. I just want to make sure that we're not striking out something that is very important.
Well, keep in mind that the list is not limited. I mean, the list is following, but shall not be limited to.
Right.
So just because it's not in 1, 2, 3, doesn't mean it can't be part of a development. I was just trying to get rid of text that didn't add any value,
Yeah, no.
because it's gonna be in a development agreement if it needs to be in a development. Development could also do hours of operation.
I know.
and all sorts of
Exactly. I mean, it talks about sewer main lines and structures. I've never really read through this.
number of stories and heights. It's like, wow, if you haven't figured that out by now, those really need to be in a development agreement, because development agreement could be changed. It's like, no, that's just, site plan.
Bill Nemser, what do you think about this proposed change
With the,
that Bill Crenshaw?
I like it.
You
I
see
think
any,
that-
you see any drawbacks?
I have to go through it some more and chew on it, but, well, the first drawback is probably the perception. It's gonna be like I say, if people are saying, wait a minute, 60%, how can I make money at it? And my response would be, then if you can build under the 1,500.
No, I meant, so Bill Crenshaw took the 16 items for
Oh.
the development agreement and squished them down to 3 more generalized.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Do you see any drawbacks here? Do you like, what do you think about this?
I would like to chew on this one a little more. The development agreement, it seems to me like now, we're getting the hang of it a little bit, but I think that if you're gonna have it as part of your regulatory framework, you should have a template, basically, that's the same, and so I don't.
Oh, I could not have disagreed more. The development agreement is specifically for unique circumstances that can't be handled by standard approach.
No, I don't mean that. I mean that you're gonna address certain areas. So in other words, if you're gonna talk about, things like in a development agreement, number of units, okay, that should always be addressed.
Yeah, but that's just stupid, because number of units is already figured out in the site plan.
But
It's
my point-
unnecessary.
there's certain things. Well, are you just, but if you don't, then you go off and, you go off in the jungle and come out with all kinds of stuff you're pulling out. If, I'm just saying that to be efficient,
I'm saying there should be no repetition between the development agreement and the planning board standard permitting.
Oh, I agree. No, I agree with that.
I don't need to know how big the lot size is because I know that was part of the site plan.
Yeah, but I can also tell you that for same size project, I've looked at stuff and there's a 2-page development agreement and there's a 52-page development agreement. That's what I'm saying.
Some are harder than others.
So if we go big picture, 945 says a development agreement needs to be executed. Town and the applicant. Item 1 is the affordable size units. Item 2 is a donation to open space and recreation. And then there's this generalized other stuff. If we needed generalized, if we needed other things, shouldn't it just be a number 3 or a number, because 1 is affordable units, 2 is open space, and if we needed something else, shouldn't it just be number 3? Because at this point, this is just guidelines. The development agreement may include any of the
Right,
following, but
yeah.
shall not be limited to. It's just guidelines.
Right,
all it
it
is.
may, it doesn't even have to include anything.
Yeah, it's just a guideline. It means nothing.
I mean, I could see you could actually strike it.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Right.
But I think it has some slight advantage of putting developers on notice that there are expectations of things to be discussed.
Well, that's why I'm saying that I would be inclined to make a framework of what is, so that there's a level of understanding before we come in. You know, like what kind of, or what things would be.
Well, I mean, because in my mind, it's like, well, one is, what do you do if your retail is vacant? And another is, you're gonna pay to fix whatever private sidewalk you have. That would be a standard for me.
So wouldn't that be a more appropriate decision?
Maybe,
So that's a good example, Bill. Your number 3, your commitments regarding operations and types of uses in commercial space, including provisions of interim use. That's something that seems a little more, should be more specific than shall, maybe included, maybe not.
I think that would be better off in a decision.
well, I think it should be standard in all decisions, but it's some advantage of putting something like that in a development agreement, because a development agreement's a little more easier to modify than the decision.
So the point here is that it's signaling to an applicant of what we may intend for a development agreement. This seems
Yeah,
more
I
like
mean-
signaling.
Right, but, I mean, I can go with just getting rid of it, because,
If
this stuff should actually also apply to every project, not just projects that ask for extra.
But if we want to signal, then I'm fine with signaling. We just want to, I think we just need to discuss
Yeah.
what we want to signal. And these are good, Bill. But I have to read it from a framework or a lens of looking at how we want to signal to developers.
Yeah. I don't want them to say, oh, well, I'm not asking for extra units, I'm doing it. If you build something, do something there is a special permit.
Bob, you deal with this a lot. What do you think generally, like how to approach this?
I have a couple of thoughts. First, I do like the notion of turning this into paragraph 3. I mean, it doesn't immediately include these things. But I like giving the guidance to.
It's part of our wisdom, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
but my concern with striking everything that's proposed is how it's going to be perceived when you bring it to town meeting. It may be because everything's in May anyway, you should better off leaving it in there than just adding the few things you want to add. So people don't get all,
No.
bothered by what you're taking away and wanting an explanation for each thing, and you wanted to argue, oh, this should stay in. Or that should stay in.
That's not gonna be the fight of town. That is not gonna be, there's not gonna be any comments about that at town.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that.
Well, we'll find out.
I've got way too many town meeting presentations.
So,
That is not-
just,
Maybe stuck on the 60, 80.
I've only been to like maybe 7 or 8, and they surprised me.
But, I mean, you're right, you should be able to say, you know, by the way, oh, that is already, that is standardly covered in site plan. That's already covered elsewhere. This is already covered. These are redundancies. We're trying to not bother talking about.
It's something to consider, but before we consider perceptions, let's focus on what we think is better. What we want. Then we'll look at perceptions.
Fair share. Well, you're getting a special permit.
Oh, you're talking big picture.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Something for the downtown that's proportional to what you're doing.
I assume you feel that this is.
Well, this is nothing.
The whole 9-foot line.
Oh, I don't think it's fair enough, but I think it's fair.
Okay. We've got a very good negotiation.
Yeah, if it were with me, I would require 60% units.
I mean, again, I don't see the benefit of any of this section except for signal to developers. What's that result? I have the only utility I find in this last section is just to signal to developers. It's hard for me to. I guess it can provide guidance to those that are drafting
Yes,
development agreement, like, it could be that, but we have lawyers that draft development agreements. We need to provide guidance to lawyers that draft
they vary. They can vary.
and they vary.
And like Bill said, you know, I don't think that they should vary as much as some of them do. And it's, predictability, yeah. Sides, but there are certain things that maybe the attorney would not consider. That we would, like, for example, with the waterfront access, something like that. Useful activation, something like that, you know.
Right, because right, that's a weird development. They just use that. Has to be rules about who the hell allows this stuff. But one of the other options we have is, instead of having a separate section 3, thing, at the beginning, intro sentences 1 and 2, we say development agreement will include a whole bunch of stuff. It must include these 2. Might include a bunch of stuff, but minimum has to include these 2.
But it shouldn't be repetitive, right? I mean, it's just this, so if there's stuff that we have that you have to do at decision time.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. We just wipe out all of. Bulk up the intro to 1 and 2 to say these 2 have to be in development agreement, you know, just the whatever the hell other stuff, right?
Maybe, say 30s, maybe just, can we all put thought to this and send our thoughts to Bill? Bill, what's the thought? Okay, absolutely. We could go, I could go back and forth with this for another 2 hours.
Well, the big thing, to me, the three.
That's it.
No, I think the big, for me personally, 60% thing down.
I like this.
And I was, wearing. Inspiring with it. I think it's.
Pretty sure that this was. That's not.
And then, the decisions, what's gonna be. I try to keep some boilerplate stuff in decisions, but a lot of it's obligations, like, what we talked about, oh, utilities underground. That's, you have to do it, without a waiver, unless you have a waiver. you have
Bill, do you want to tell us how and why we should only?
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple argument that the reason, I suspect the reason that it was done was an option was probably because there was some apprehension about, well, I'm going to lose the right to do this for my property. Understand. But now I can think of nothing worse. We have a downtown that's becoming more activated. And now somebody comes in and builds something with a different dimension. The central business district, right? All I can think about was when the donut. And big sea of parking in front of Main Street and, would have been totally inconsistent. Things like, what would we do?
So what's the change?
It's not an option. Just an overlay district, like I said, I've never heard of it being optional because it's a big.
Why would it be an overlay? Why doesn't it just replace the base?
Well, that's a good question, because typically why don't you, because if you are rezoning the whole area, that's one thing you might do it, but if you're doing a portion, you're just trying to have an objective of, in this case, of mixed use and walkable compact development. You want it in specific areas more, but you don't want to jettison, you don't lose the underlying rights of the underlying district. And that was unless you specifically pull it out, like that with the MBOD, when we dropped it over the industrial. Remember that? And there was a question about, what can you do still under the industrial?
So I guess it has to be an overlay because it's overlapping on multiple zones.
Okay.
But for this one, no matter what, it'll hit business and it'll hit CBD.
It,
It might, yeah, it won't overlap on res.
no, business is, yeah, you're right.
Like, it can't fully replace the underlying, because the underlying varies.
Unless, yeah, right, it'd be a very difficult thing to read.
Yeah.
You'd be chopping off two zones.
But if you made it mandatory, what? Really? You could just build a parking lot in the front yard facing Main Street?
Yeah, I mean, you could build under whatever the central business allows. We wouldn't be able to do anything. I think that would, we'd be like, what the heck are we doing? All of a sudden we have like our cool little.
I don't
bond.
believe the central business really allows that.
Well,
I mean,
let's go right here. We got it right up.
DOD reduces parking requirements.
Yeah, it does.
CBD.
It does. So let's
So
see.
you build- By right, you have to build more parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what are the lot lines?
So look here. Okay. And let's see what we've got here.
Impervious? Does any of that get worse?
All right. Central business. What do we have here? You
Building
have no
height
setback.
40.
Okay. Height feet.
Go to the table.
Yep.
CB has no minimum lot requirement,
Mm.
but the DOD doesn't either, right?
There's none, right?
And the CB has no minimum yard requirements, but the DOD does not either. Right?
Mhm.
And DOD doesn't have maximum lot coverage, does it?
DOD has no max, there's no lot.
DOD does have something about building heights, because
Heights
they're
40.
really trying to keep everything at 2 levels.
Yeah, 40.
Is the DOD 40?
Yeah.
But DOD doesn't have minimum height?
Oh, it is a 35. Wait,
Yeah, DOD has minimum heights, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some additional DOD.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, because
Minimum.
it wants everything to be 2 stories, everything to be consistent.
Yeah, minimum.
That's a good, that's an interesting.
Yeah, and in the business district, you know,
Business district has lot requirements, the
Yeah.
DOD, the DOD, oh, so the DOD gets rid of the setbacks for business areas.
Yes,
mhm,
and you can have.
That might be a problem for the stuff that's buttoned up against, res. But they probably pick it anyways, right? I mean, if they could get rid of setbacks, they'd almost always choose that.
The board can always waive.
and then the other thing
No,
is
you can't waive setbacks.
Or zoning, I guess.
zoning can, yeah.
No, you'd have to have a damn good reason.
You need a variance.
Well,
That's super hard to do.
so then we would have to take a hard look at all the boundaries. with-
So here, and I
It
hear,
might not be that big a problem.
so,
you know.
you know, and look all the, under the CV, you know, there's different uses that are not permitted.
So the DOD is not a use thing, is
Uh-huh,
it?
sure.
Is it?
Oh, yeah,
Full language of the DOD? Really? That's uses?
yeah, look,
Oh, it does talk about mixed use. DOD
Yeah.
is mixed use.
that's the real thing they're going
DOD is
for.
mixed use only.
There it is.
Yeah.
So what it's really
Yeah.
saying is, if you want to do a mixed use project, it'll kind of let you.
That's why people do it, because it's incentivized to do it.
So we're saying the business district and the CB does not allow those a mixed use with 6 or fewer?
And it doesn't allow.
Multifamily, it doesn't allow multifamily.
That's right. That's the incentive.
But here's the question
What would
too.
change?
What if you had, what is the use you think is inappropriate in the DOD right now? What would be,
The current use?
Hmm?
The current use, parking in the bowl.
no, I mean like a car wash or, I mean.
Yes.
I really want a car wash. No, probably not downtown.
Okay, but so let's say we agreed to the car wash. We didn't think it was a good idea. In the middle.
DOD said, well, you have to put housing above.
Let's see, I don't, I would bet you could use it. Let's see if we put car wash in
No
there.
way.
No? All right, let's see what we can do.
But the DOD is not
course.
only, I mean, you were saying the DOD also allows, right?
That's right.
It does,
But if you
but
make it mandatory, are you saying it doesn't, we still allow this whole table in the CB
we do,
plus
we
whatever?
do, but it makes mixed use residential required.
Does it make
Whereas,
it required or enabled? I'm not sure it makes it required.
It's,
our DOD projects?
Yeah.
Our DOD special permit, my understanding is that that residential is required as part of the project, right?
Oh, in the
In the DOD.
D rules, right, but.
for mixed uses.
Mandatory, I don't see that every building in the downtown or business districts have to have residential.
In the DOD, yes.
If they choose to do.
If they
Really?
choose to
So
do,
you
so,
think,
so hold on, right, but you're right, so.
All right.
Yeah, so right now, if we made DOD mandatory, everything would be mixed use under the DOD. footprint.
everything would have to be mixed.
I don't know, we may need to look at the footprint.
So that means that the pot shop going to the bank needs to have residential?
That was a use discussion, not a site plan.
Well, no,
DOD
because,
rules, man.
no, what you would do, because like in the DOD right now,
But we don't have a car wash, so this is why I'm going off of talking about site walk, like a large site development, change in site development. Because we're not talking about a use for a building, and the only reason marijuana came through is because it was marijuana. Right, so we don't talk about,
Why did we treat it with DOD rules if DOD is up?
I don't know.
because, no, because the use, we didn't talk about uses like for special permit use.
And what was happening was that we wanted to be able to utilize the DOD special permit review criteria to make sure that we had adequate mitigation or help for downtown. Otherwise, what would stop the last marijuana guy who just come in and say, well, I'm coming in, but I'm coming in under the central business. I don't want to come in under DOD. So I don't want to have to meet any of your criteria.
So is that part of the host development, host agreement? Anyway, we'll talk about marijuana another time. Let's focus on this.
So-
But it's a good question.
So the guy who, I think we gave a permit for across the street, the gas station, right?
Yeah.
That would have to have residential
No,
if the DOD was mandatory.
But did he go through DOD?
No,
no.
he didn't, but we're saying we're gonna make it mandatory. We're not gonna make it optional.
That's the discussion, yes.
But you'd amend the DOD for certain uses that you want. So we would expand the uses that you want. That's what I'm saying. Some units, some uses you wouldn't want in there at all. But
Oh my God, so it would be like the use table in the, at 129 Park. Oh my God, I want that. Oh, Jesus. That is a huge change.
well, it's something it's just, I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying I just don't understand what is the purpose of an optional overlay district?
Incentives.
So that the gas station from across the street doesn't have to put residential mixed use on its property,
No,
right?
no, the DOD was an incentive zoning. So you get a break on lot setbacks, you get a break on parking, sometimes you get a break on residential. And if you take those incentives, then you do the DOD rules. It was not one size fits all.
So here's how it works now. Okay, it's superimposed on the included portions of the underlying zoning districts. All allowances, definitions, regulations, and standards shall apply except where specifically modified. So right there, that's what you do. So the uses that are in the central business district now, the gas station is not going to change. They're saying that unless you call it out, the underlying, you still can retain that use. But if you don't want it for some reason, or you don't want gas stations, you could say, okay, we're excluding gas stations. And Nick across the street can't do it. You're not, but that's the difference.
See, I read that as as it applies to everything. I don't read that.
If you don't read it as well, it is. But we could just, I think if we're doing this, we can type-
Permitted and prohibited uses. So the DOD only allows those for uses.
no,
Table eight.
the DOD, what you said, who said the incentives? The incentives are those uses. That's where you get,
So in addition to the underlying.
right.
Plus those things.
You're not going to lose the underlying uses unless it's specifically prohibited. So if you said, for example, let's just use a car wash.
But if we made DOD mandatory,
Right.
it would lose all those other use possibilities.
No. Not unless you struck them.
Oh, because the uses can stay, but we just make DOD mandatory, but then what are we doing?
Because you're trying to control the type of development that comes into that.
I don't
So,
see how that controls the development. I could still build a gas station.
Yeah, you can still build a gas station.
Matter of fact, I could build it closer to the property line.
no, you can,
With less parking.
but not if we said we don't want gas stations, just say, it, right? In the use table, we want to eliminate gas,
So you
just
want
like,
to create a bigger use table.
well, no, just like we do with the MBOD. Remember, MBOD went on Parker Street on Manor Crossing was industrial uses underneath it. Everybody, when we first got here, people say that's a nature preserve. It's like, not a nature preserve, it's industrial. And remember that argument? But we had to take away because we didn't want an air curtain incinerator all of a sudden being built in the middle of that. So we said, no, you can't do, if it's
But
less.
we have to go through the entire use table, which has a lot of problems.
Yeah,
And say that, oh, by the way, this underlying use is not allowed in our new DOD.
right.
Okay.
Right. But I don't say we should start. I'm just saying eventually that's what we should move to. But I think what we're doing tonight with 945 is that's a totally, that is a pretty good
As,
adjustment.
as chairman, I authorize you, Bill, to go through the use table for DOD and make a proposal to the planning board.
I weep with gratitude.
But I don't know if we're gonna take that on.
No, all right.
I-
Let's get
no.
945. It was-
But I do like, I would like the whole board to understand that concept.
Yeah,
So maybe, Bill, maybe it'd be helpful just to put together like,
for overlays? Sure.
just a presentation when all board members are here,
Okay.
just to discuss what we discussed, right? And a plan to move towards that sort of concept. And then we'll see if then we'll discuss it more.
Fair enough.
Because sounds like a big undertaking.
Well, do we get, right now, we're getting the kind of development we want downtown, right? I mean, everything's been kind of mixed use.
Except for Jimmy's Garage was the only one I can think of.
Jimmy's Garage.
Yeah, across the street.
But that was the only.
It's either pure res or mixed use.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah,
Yeah.
wall.
That's the only project that
Yeah.
came through that I've seen in the DOD that wasn't DOD.
Well, and also
Well,
remember, but
no.
you're forgetting one, but you're also forgetting one, that's like pre-existing use. That's grandfathered in anyway,
Right.
because he didn't discontinue it. If he discontinued it, I think it's 2 years or
Yeah, but
something.
he added a restaurant and all that stuff.
You what?
He added a store and food and
Yeah.
things like
A
that.
restaurant?
Convenience.
Yeah, you'd take out.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, okay, all right.
So we didn't, yeah, but that's the only one I can think of. No, I think it's worked really well. And if there's ways we can continue to make it well and have it incentivized correctly, then we'll make changes.
Be very interested. to
You know
see.
what would have been different is, the guys who filled in the hole, by the bike shop. and did those.
Oh, well,
guys,
That wasn't
They
on,
would have had to be mixed use
that wasn't on there.
because it's on the main drag.
Yeah, that wasn't on
They would have had to be mixed use.
there. Did they go through? They're just pure residential.
I can't remember. Yeah, they did go under general.
But under DOD rules,
They went under.
fronting that kind of
Are they
street. has to
not?
be mixed
Are
Wait
they
a
use.
minute,
not
I
in the
can't
DOD?
remember.
Are they not in the DOD now? We're gonna wait.
Yeah, they
They
are.
may have been too small or they chose not to be.
Something happened.
It
It was
Maybe they were too small, they too few units.
the same guy that did with Surrey as well.
They needed some.
Let's look that up. I can't, forgot. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure theoretically DOD would require. Not, it allows pure residential, not fronting.
it
That's
has,
how 42 Summer got it.
oh, wait a minute, here it is, okay. A multifamily dwelling. Okay. Not a mixed use, a multifamily dwelling. Cannot be built in these restricted areas. Frontage on Main or Mason Street, bounded by Florida, Summer Street.
Oh.
So that's what it was. He was on the other side.
That's
Florida.
Florida.
Yeah, that's why. But why didn't we have the affordable? I guess it's before we had inclusionary zoning.
Wasn't that many units, was it only 5?
It's 5 or 6.
Yeah, all right, so yeah. I thought-
Well, and I'm sure we must have done
You would not have to have
inclusionary.
it because it's fast forward.
Yeah. Inclusionary kicks in after,
6.
was it 5?
So
Another was 5.
either way they do. have to-
Yeah, anyway, yeah,
The DOD was mandatory. with them.
So, yeah, we want to make things, we want all. Anything, Bill, you want to propose to us, that's great. Let's maybe walk us a little more. Is that okay? How we wanna.
I think we're working on the 945, we get that done, we get the home occupation is gonna be,
Criteria is super important.
what?
Criteria is probably the most important.
For the BID?
If everyone wants to put thought into that.
Yeah.
So I,
Yeah.
if everyone wants to put thought to that, then we prepare it after. Criteria discussion. That's how much money going.
Wow, that's the rules.
Any real what?
Hey, real project. This is cool. I like it.
Cool projects.
And we,
What do we have for schedule coming up?
nothing in public hearings. We are like, it's funny because I'm slammed with, I've got ZBA, which I've never had so many ZBA.
Speaking of which, we're 1 or 2 meetings away.
You telling me you fired me though? On that one?
We just did an end run. The CBA guy and I had a secret.
So it probably had breakfast too.
No, I was thinking about that. That was a long meeting, so good thing we didn't.
All right.
Yeah, the next one. What about the other efforts? We have,
ADU?
oh yeah, right.
We're not.
Oh, well, it's funny, each of them is very simple.
Oh, right.
They started where Natalie's sick and Peter's sick.
What, where are we?
Oh, I wrote part 2 of the grant. Well, here's the deal with that. We got the funding from MAPC to do that. Well, I wrote a second grant, to piggyback on top of that with MAPC's blessing to EEA. I'm confident we'll get that sold over the next week, 2 weeks.
That's
So
technical support.
it would double the grant.
This is for the technical support.
This would be for rezoning for the river, I forgot what we're calling, the activation, just call it activation. And the complete streets, not the thing, approach for all that. I think that's what she was busy for next year, honestly. He's-
We still gotta figure out.
Everybody's ears perked up with it now, so.
Yeah, we gotta focus on, I think our job may be to focus on the identity of it all. Talk about north side of the road, south side of the road. Nature of the whole corridor, what should we include, what should we exclude?
I think an outreach, just tell people, how we could improve quality of life, everything from zoning patterns and pedestrian features, buffers, and look nice, at least protect the neighbors back there, make it, because it's pretty cool.
And then we have to decide if it's going to be a replacement district.
That's where we need to draw.
Is that complete streets work under that thing only for Powder Mill, or would it apply to using the DOD to leverage project?
Right now, see, Acton got that grant, they got a this grant because. So we're trying to work with them, so it would be. When it was complete, it would be one side.
Oh, but it's not, all right, so it's really just for their quarters, so it's not like,
Yeah.
a master plan type complete streets that applies to any project that gets built.
No, it would be the
Some point of
border.
view, it's like,
Yeah.
well, projects need complete streets, so 88 up, guys.
But the way I envision it is because it's so, inconsistent, there's narrow spots where I don't know how we do stuff. I'm thinking that's where we use the density bonuses there, and as part of it, we use, okay, in the density bonus, you're giving us an easement and a utility, 10-foot utility path. Separate or buffered from out enough on your property, but here's the extra units. That type of thing. That's kind of what I was thinking, like, rather than having this death trap and just ride along the road, in your bike, it would be, we may have to go on somebody's.
Now's the time to be very thoughtful about all of that. So yes, I fully agree with that thinking.
And having, but why not say, if we don't have the room in the right of way for the town, so say developer, here's your bonus units, but you need to give us.
Here,
Here,
the hell
and,
don't we have room for the right of way in that corridor,
yeah,
other than right at the intersection?
well, what I'm just saying, so you have the template basically for every common situation, and they said, so when they come in, they said, well, okay, what do you want us to do? Here's what fits in this. We want to, whatever the case may be.
The River Edge Temple,
River, yeah, well,
it's street temples.
we're ready for that one, and we can apply for the planning grant after if we don't have another.
So
Hey, I got a River Edge project for you. The town pump station behind the bank. If we can't turn that into river access, we can't turn anything into river access.
Station right back. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's flat, it's got a little road that goes down there. I mean, it really should be our first thing, because honestly,
Let's talk to Julia about Julia's all of this.
I mean, it is a pump station, but it's right next to the river and, we should be able to put a little bit of river walk right there.
So we'll look at
It's gotta be easier than the other parcels.
it.
I think a few months ago, we assigned Jim to work with you, Bill Nemser, on taking a look at the mill properties.
Yeah.
Have you and Jim had any discussion?
We did, yeah, we met on it.
Is it something to discuss now, or we can wait later?
No, it's, I don't have anything new to report on it. We have two initiatives that I'm trying to get with them. It's quite an involvement. But the answer is, at the moment.
I assume eventually we may want to work towards zoning changes. With that property at some point? No, maybe.
Well, it's private property, so that we need to,
But for the district there.
The HCI,
the what, the HCI?
the HCI.
HCI, yeah, but we couldn't, but it's no, they would have to initiate.
Okay.
And that,
I like it.
we couldn't downzone it. If we did it.
I'm not sure we would be down zoning. It's pretty down zone, right?
It's pretty,
Is it?
it's good zone. I would think, my personal opinion on the mill is that with right people in there, that wanted to do a mill retrofit, and it had been their experience, there's no reason why that place should be epicenter of everything. That's very frustrating.
Sorry, don't mean to bring up.
No, it's not that kind of frustrating. Okay. No,
All right, just curious. Well, I got nothing else. The next time, first meeting in June, we'll talk about the special permit criteria.
all right.
What else? Anything else? From a priority standpoint, we'll review section 945 again and see if we can get that approved so we can move it towards a bylaw change.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
And maybe hopefully we'll have enough time to tag along any permit criteria change that we may want to make. A package, that'd be kind of my goal. Does that sound okay as a goal?
Yeah, I would just hope that we actually get it done. You know, in the next
2 meetings.
month,
Yeah.
6 weeks, so we can start the process, which, as I understand, it then locks in those changes for future development. Once we start advertising the hearings on it, right?
And
Anybody
I
who files
think,
new.
yeah,
have
if,
to go by
if the public hearing, I think has been advertised, I think anything after that is,
So are we looking towards July for a public hearing for that? For
well, I mean, we don't want to,
We don't need to rush it, but.
No,
I do want to do these things.
I
don't wanna
mean, it
talk
just
about
means that
Figure-
your next project's gonna happen before these changes.
figure I can't do it, if we had it right now, if we had finished it right now.
Yeah.
With advertising and everything, figure you need 6 weeks to get it through public hearing.
So we're really
process.
looking.
And it has to go to town meeting.
Not to get it through, I just want to start the process. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm thinking that starting the process
Yeah.
locks in the rules.
Yeah.
For whoever files after the process starts.
Yeah, that's right.
Got it. I see that.
So that's about a 6 week process.
Okay, so the goal is this summer to initiate that process.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we agree on what we want, yeah.
So let's try to wrap up these changes in June and then we'll get.
Well, that gives us, yeah, it's, well, we could do that, I think with it. Yeah. Yeah, we could.
Anything else?
I got nothing.
Yes. I second it. All in favor? Is it to, no, it's not to adjourn. This is what Jim always tells us.
It's adjourned.
Okay. Jim doesn't like that.
No.
Okay, good. Motion to adjourn is seconded. All in favor? 4-0.
I don't.
Thanks, Bill.
So, yeah. Well, I don't
How
think
the hell did we
that's.
make that agenda last 2 hours?
Pretty good. I learned some more about the DoD. So next meeting is at the PC.